And he actually mentioned, because he used to be quite big, and he said his goal is not to be big anymore, because as he's getting much older, it's more about health, flexibility, and being able to move more. And I remember looking on his Instagram, some of his earlier pictures, he was very big, and now he's just like doing more cardiovascular exercises. But muscle mass and weight training is actually quite important, even for people who have diabetes, because it helps control your blood sugar levels. It regulates it much better, evidence has shown, compared to doing cardiovascular exercises.
Yeah, I think, resistance training is very important for your, it's important for cardiovascular, but it's super important for your bones and joints. And I think a combination is the best, to do resistance training with weights, as well as, cardiovascular training, such as, whether it's swimming or, jogging or, bike riding, whatever it might be. I think, a combination of the two is probably the best way in terms of achieving, your optimum health, for a sustainable lifestyle. Because if you look at some of the bodybuilders, I should say a lot of the bodybuilders, who are competitive, it's not sustainable. Not many of them can live in that same lifestyle beyond their 40s, 50s, 60s. A lot of them, either stop training to that extent and lose a lot of their muscle mass, or some of them keep trying to do it and they are riddled with injuries. I mean, look at Ronnie Coleman, who is one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, versus a guy like Dorian Yates, right? Like Dorian Yates was the guy who brought that bigger frame to bodybuilding. And if you talk to him now, I mean, he's got so much wisdom. I love listening to podcasts with Dorian Yates because he completely transitioned. He got hurt really badly, because he overdid it. And as he got older and, continued to compete, he, had so many, injuries, and he decided to retire from bodybuilding, and he lost so much weight. He lost so much muscle, and he feels like he's in such great shape and does things that he wished he did when he was younger. He does a lot of yoga. He does a lot of functional and mobility training, and he's just so happy with it. And it's the wisdom that he tries to impart on people now, from his standpoint. And, I'm kind of tuning myself into that more and more, because I want to be somebody who's in great shape, and in better shape every year of my life, and not just somebody who looks back and says, man, I used to be so fit. I want to be more and more fit every year.
You might not look muscular, but you might be quite healthy. And I think one of the visions that I have is to be more like an athlete, because that's my natural kind of, that's where I am naturally. Like, no matter how big I try to get, I'd only be able to hold that frame for such a long time, where it would just get smaller and smaller, and plus it would get slower. Because I run quite a lot. I used to be a sprinter myself, and I find the aspect of health sits on the boundaries of, you've got to look at yourself from 10 years from now. Where do you want to be? Because things change, it depends where you are in your life. And one thing I just wanted to touch upon was, I don't know what the evidence is of weight training on cardiovascular exercise, but I just presume because you're pumping more blood into your muscles, where you have a lot of vessels that sit next to them, that perhaps you might get more nutritious blood coming into your nerves and other vessels as you pump the muscle. I haven't looked too much into that, but I just kind of thought about the aspect of weight training on that, because I think a lot of people are tied too much more into cardiovascular working out. And it's just like, now there's research coming to play.
I mean, there's definitely a benefit, to resistance training when it comes to cardiovascular health. I'm just not sure how it compares in terms of which is better. I would assume it would be, cardiovascular health is more readily achieved with more, I would say, like anaerobic training, aerobic training. But there's definitely benefit to lifting weights and getting into the gym. I think that, anything can be overdone, right? Like, you can overdo it with weights and hurt yourself. But if you do a combat, I think, again, achieving the best results probably comes with a combination of the two.
Yeah, definitely warming up beforehand can have a dramatic impact on reducing injury.
Yeah, always warm up. I never just start lifting heavy. I always ramp up to, the level of weight that you want to achieve as a goal for that day. Because it could be deleterious to try to lift up heavy weights on a cold joint and cold muscle. You want to get blood flowing. And I think the best way to warm up is actively and not stretching. Stretching itself is good. And I do it at the end of my workouts. I stretch my, joints and ligaments and muscles, but, the warm up for lifting and, being active in the gym is usually dynamic for me. It's, high knees, running in place, jumping jacks, doing the actual exercise with very lightweight, and doing that for multiple sets and ramping up to the target goal of weight. Warm up is essential.